On my birthday, my daughter gave me earbuds. 3 days later, the police came for her. My daughter gave me a pair of wireless earbuds for my 68th birthday. I took them to my old garage to show my army buddy, David. He picked them up, examined them under his magnifying loupe, and his face turned white. "Robert," he said quietly, "you need to talk to the police. Someone's tampered with these." I laughed it off. I refused to believe it. This was Sarah, my own daughter. But 3 days later, when the police showed up at my door, I learned that birthday gift was never meant to bring us closer. It was meant to bury me. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us today. If this story resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real stories of betrayal and justice. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love connecting with our community. I woke up on my 68th birthday to the sound of nothing. That's what gets you about living alone. It's not the loneliness exactly. It's the silence. The kind that settles into the corners of a house that used to ring with voices. Margaret would have had the coffee going by now. Probably burnt the first batch like she always did. Filling the kitchen with that bitter smell I'd pretend to complain about. But it's been 4 years since I buried her, and the kitchen stays quiet until I drag myself out of bed to fill it. I went through the motions. Coffee for one. Toast I didn't finish. The newspaper spread across a table built for 4. Birthdays used to mean something in this house. Margaret would make her lemon cake, the one that took all morning. Sarah would call or visit, back when she still did those things. But after the funeral, after whatever I said or didn't say pushed her away, the calls stopped. The visits stopped. The birthdays just became Thursdays. I was clearing my plate when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. David usually called before dropping by. And the mail didn't come until noon. I shuffled to the door, still in my slippers, and found a delivery driver holding a small black box like it contained something precious. "Robert Hill?" he asked, scanning his device. "That's me. Happy birthday," he said, handing it over with a grin that suggested he knew something I didn't. The box was sleek, expensive looking. The kind of packaging that makes you afraid to tear it open. I brought it to the kitchen table and sat down slowly, my hands steadier than my breath. The return address just said, Sarah Hill. No street, no city, just her name, like that was supposed to be enough after 4 years of silence. Inside were wireless earbuds. Not the cheap kind you grab at the drugstore, but real ones. Premium. The kind I'd seen in commercials but would never buy for myself because who needs that kind of technology at my age? They sat in their charging case like tiny pieces of the future, gleaming under my kitchen light. Then I saw the note. Small, cream-colored card, folded once. Her handwriting still careful, still measured, like Margaret taught her when she was young. To help you keep up with the world. Love. Sarah. Love. That word sat heavy on the page. I read it 3 times, trying to decode it, trying to find the catch. But maybe there wasn't one. Maybe this was her way of saying she was ready. Ready to talk again. Ready to be my daughter again. I held those earbuds like they were made of glass, feeling something I hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the start of something new. Maybe my daughter was finally coming home. I had no idea she'd never left. She'd just been waiting for the right moment to take everything I had left. I couldn't wait to show David. He was the only person left who still checked on me, who remembered what it was like when this house had life in it. We'd served together in the army back when our knees still worked and our hands didn't shake. Now he spent his days at the old garage on Miller Street, the one I used to run before I retired. He kept the coffee hot and the door open for guys like us who needed somewhere to go that wasn't an empty living room. I drove over the next morning with the earbuds in my jacket pocket, feeling foolish for being excited about a birthday gift at my age. But it wasn't really about the earbuds. It was about what they meant. Sarah remembered. Sarah cared. Maybe she was ready to forgive whatever I'd done wrong at the funeral, whatever words came out clumsy and cold when I should have been warm. The garage smelled like motor oil and old coffee, familiar as my own skin. David was bent over an engine block, his reading glasses perched on his nose, working with the same precision he used to use disarming communications equipment in the field. He straightened up when I walked in, wiping his hands on a rag that had been cleaned sometime in the last decade. "Bob," he said, nodding. "Coffee's fresh. Well, fresh as of 6 this morning. That'll do." I poured myself a cup from the pot that had been brewing since Carter was president and held up the black case. "Got something to show you." His eyebrows went up. "You finally get a cell phone that isn't from 2010? Better. Wireless earbuds. From Sarah." "Mon." The skepticism on his face shifted to something softer. David knew about the silence. He'd been there at Margaret's funeral when Sarah walked out halfway through my eulogy. "No kidding? She sent them out of the blue? Birthday gift." I pulled them out, holding them up like tiny trophies. High-end ones, too. "I figured you'd appreciate the tech since I can barely figure out how to charge them." David took them from my hand, his expression curious. Then something changed. His eyes narrowed the way they used to when he'd spot a wire that didn't belong. He walked over to his workbench and flipped on his magnifying lamp, the one with the big circular lens he used for detail work. "What are you doing?" I asked, following him. "Just looking." He pulled out a jeweler's loupe from his drawer, the kind watchmakers use, and examined the earbud under the light. His jaw tightened. The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. "David?" He set the earbud down carefully, too carefully, like it might explode. When he looked up at me, his voice came out barely above a whisper. "Bob, you need to call the police." "What? Why?" He pointed at the tiny device under the light. "This isn't a microphone for calls, Bob. This is a transmitter. Someone's modified this thing. Someone's listening to you." I didn't believe him. Not at first. I stood there in that garage, looking at David like he'd finally lost it. Like all those years of military paranoia had caught up with him and turned him into one of those conspiracy theorists who sees danger in their breakfast cereal. But David wasn't laughing. David wasn't backing down. He just kept pointing at that tiny piece of circuitry like it was a loaded gun. "It's Sarah," I said. "My daughter." "I don't know why, Bob, but I know what I'm looking at. This has been tampered with. Professionally." That word professionally is what made my stomach drop. Because if David was right, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't some factory defect. Someone had opened these earbuds, modified them, sealed them back up, and sent them to me with a note that said, "Love, Sarah." Detective Miller's office smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. He was younger than I expected. Maybe 40, with the kind of tired eyes that suggested he'd seen enough of humanity's worst to lose faith in its best. I set the earbuds on his desk like evidence at a crime scene because that's what David said they were. Miller picked them up, turned them over in his hands, then pulled out his phone and took several photos from different angles. He didn't say anything for a long time, just examined them with the same intensity David had, occasionally grunting or nodding to himself like he was having a conversation I wasn't invited to. "Your friend's right," he finally said. "These have been modified." And based on the heat signature I'm reading, he held up some kind of scanning device from his drawer. "They're active right now. Whoever's on the other end is listening to this conversation." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of his desk. "So what do I do? Confront her?" Miller shook his head slowly. "If you confront her, she'll deny it. She'll say, the company must have made a mistake, or someone else tampered with them in shipping. You'll never prove intent. What you need is evidence. Real evidence. And for that," he leaned forward, his voice dropping, "you need to be the victim she wants to see." "What does that mean?" "It means you wear these. You act the part. If she's listening for a reason. Maybe she thinks you're losing it. Maybe she wants to prove you can't take care of yourself. Whatever she's planning, she needs you to play into it. So give her what she wants. Be confused. Be forgetful. Be the vulnerable old man she's trying to create." I stared at him. "You want me to pretend to be senile? I want you to let her think she's winning. Until we can prove what she's really after." I drove home with those earbuds in my pocket, feeling like I was carrying a live grenade. Every instinct I had screamed to throw them in the trash, to call Sarah and demand answers, to do something that felt like taking control. But Miller's words kept playing in my head. Be the victim she wants to see. Let her think she's winning. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to go inside. The house looked the same as it always did, quiet, ordinary, mine. Except now it felt like enemy territory. Now it felt like every word I spoke would be recorded, analyzed, weaponized against me by my own daughter. I put the earbuds in. They fit perfectly, comfortably, like they were designed for someone exactly like me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now where did I put those damn keys? I said out loud, patting my pockets, even though my keys were sitting right there on the kitchen counter where I always left them. My voice sounded strange, performative, like I was acting in a play I never auditioned for. I swear I just had them. Memory's not what it used to be. I walked into the living room, still muttering. Need to pay that electric bill. When's it due? Tuesday? Wednesday? Hell, I can't remember. Maybe I already paid it. Did I already pay it? It felt ridiculous. Insulting. Like I was betraying myself with every confused word. But I thought about what Miller said. About proving intent. About catching her in whatever web she was spinning. So I kept going. Margaret always handled the bills, I said to the empty room. I don't know how she kept track of everything. Maybe I should write it down. Where did I put that notebook? The blue one. Or was it red? I made myself coffee and forgot to add sugar. I picked up the newspaper and pretended to read the same paragraph 3 times. I wandered from room to room like a man lost in his own house, muttering about appointments I couldn't remember and pills I might have taken twice. 10 minutes. That's how long it took. My phone buzzed on the kitchen table. A text from Sarah. The first one in 4 years that wasn't a birthday acknowledgement or a holiday formality. Dad, did you remember the electric bill? I know Mom used to handle all that. Do you want me to help you set up automatic payments? Or I could just handle your accounts for you if it's getting to be too much. I stared at that message for a long time. Handle your accounts. Such careful words. Such concerned words. Words that would sound perfectly reasonable to anyone who didn't know what I knew. My hands shook as I typed back. That might be good, sweetheart. I'm getting confused with all these bills. Her response came back immediately. Of course, Dad. I'll come by this week, and we'll get everything organized. Love you. Love you. I set the phone down and realized I was crying. She showed up 2 days later without calling first. I heard her car in the driveway, that same Honda she'd been driving since college, and my chest tightened. The last time Sarah had been in this house was the day after we buried her mother, when she'd packed up some of Margaret's things and left without saying goodbye. Now she was walking up to my front door like no time had passed at all, like 4 years of silence was just a minor gap in conversation. I made sure the earbuds were in before I answered. Evidence, Miller had said. We need evidence. Dad. She swept in with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, carrying a canvas bag filled with grocery items I didn't ask for. I was worried about you after those texts. Thought I'd stop by and check on things. Sarah. Her name felt foreign in my mouth. You didn't have to. Of course I did. She was already moving past me into the kitchen, unpacking the bag like she owned the place. Organic vegetables. Whole grain bread. The kind of food Margaret used to buy before she got sick. You shouldn't be dealing with all this alone. Not at your age. At your age. Like 68 was ancient. Like I was 1 foot in the grave. She turned to look at me then, really look at me, and her expression shifted into something that made my skin crawl. Pity. She was looking at me with pity. You're seeming so frail lately, Dad. When's the last time you had a real meal? Are you eating enough? I eat fine. She didn't believe me, or she didn't want to believe me. She walked through the living room, running her finger along the bookshelf, checking for dust like she was conducting an inspection. The yard looks a little overgrown. I've been meaning to. It's okay to need help, you know. There's no shame in it. She sat down on the couch, patting the space next to her like I was a dog she was training. I've been thinking, Have you ever considered something like assisted living? Not a nursing home, she added quickly, but a nice community, where there are people around, activities, someone to make sure you're taking your medications. I don't take medications. Well, not yet. But at your age, it's only a matter of time. She reached over and squeezed my hand, and I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. I worry about you here all alone. What if something happened? What if you fell? What if you forgot to turn off the stove? I haven't forgotten to turn off the stove. Not yet. There it was again. That careful, loaded phrase, not yet. Like my decline was inevitable. Like it was already happening. And I was too confused to notice. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Just think about it. Okay? I saw this beautiful place in Henderson. We could tour it together. Wouldn't it be nice to have people around? To not feel so isolated? I nodded because that's what the confused, frail old man would do. But inside, I was calculating exactly how much rope to give her before I pulled it tight. After Sarah left, I sat in my recliner with the earbuds still in, playing the part. I made soft snoring sounds, the kind an old man makes when he drifts off mid-afternoon like he can't help himself. I even let my mouth hang open slightly, committing to the performance in case she was still listening, in case she was cataloging every sign of my supposed decline. But my mind was racing. She'd been in this house for an hour, and not once had she asked about me, about how I was really doing, about whether I missed her mother, about the 4 years we'd lost. She'd only asked about bills and medications and whether I could still function alone, and that comment about her last visit, she'd let it slip so casually, like she'd been here recently, like she'd been in my house when I wasn't looking. I waited 20 minutes, then slowly got up from the chair with an exaggerated groan for effect. The study was at the end of the hall, Margaret's old office, where she used to do the bookkeeping for the garage. I hadn't spent much time in there since she died. Too many memories pressed into the walls, too much of her still lingering in the organized drawers and labeled files. But Sarah had been in here. I could feel it. The chair was pulled out from the desk at a different angle. A cabinet door wasn't quite closed all the way. Someone had been searching through my life, and they hadn't been careful enough to hide it. I started with the obvious places, the file cabinet, the desk drawers. Nothing. Just old tax returns and insurance policies and Margaret's careful handwriting on folder tabs from a decade ago. Then, I saw it. A cardboard box on the shelf. The one marked old photos in Margaret's writing. But it was sitting wrong, turned slightly, like someone had taken it down and put it back in a hurry. I pulled it down. My hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been in days. No more acting. No more playing the fool. The photos were on top, a thin layer of memories, Sarah's graduation, our wedding, a vacation to the coast. Underneath was a manila folder, crisp and new, completely out of place among the aging photographs. I opened it. Petition for involuntary conservatorship. My name, at the top, in cold, legal typeface. Sarah Hill, listed as petitioner. And there, in the section marked, grounds for conservatorship, someone had typed in neat, clinical language, rapid cognitive decline. Subject demonstrates inability to manage financial affairs, maintain household, or make sound decisions regarding personal welfare. Immediate intervention required to protect assets and ensure subject safety. Subject. They'd called me a subject. Like I was a problem to be solved instead of a man who'd raised her, who'd worked 40 years to build something worth leaving behind. The document was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before the earbuds arrived. 3 weeks before she'd pretended to extend an olive branch. She'd been planning this the whole time. And I'd been making her coffee. I took the folder to Detective Miller the next morning. He photographed every page, his expression growing darker with each click of the camera. When he finished, he looked at me with the kind of anger that comes from seeing too many good people taken advantage of by people who should have protected them. "We need to follow the money," he said. "People don't go to this length unless there's something significant to gain." "How much are we talking about, Mr. Hill?" "Mr." I hadn't thought about it in exact terms. The house was paid off, worth maybe $300,000 in this market. My savings were modest but solid, decades of careful living and Margaret's insistence on putting away 20% of every paycheck. And then there was the life insurance policy. The one I'd taken out when Sarah was born, the one that had grown over 40 years of premiums. I should check the bank, I said. The First National Bank on Maple Street had been my bank since I was 25. I knew the tellers by name. They knew me. So when Jennifer at the counter pulled up my account and her smile faltered, I knew something was wrong. "Mr. Hill," she said carefully, "there's a pending inquiry on your savings account, filed 3 days ago by a Sarah Hill claiming to be your power of attorney." I never gave her power of attorney. Jennifer's eyes widened. Oh no. Let me get the manager. It took an hour to sort through everything. The manager, Tom Breslin. Someone had requested detailed statements of all my accounts, checking, savings, certificates of deposit. Someone had submitted a digital authorization claiming I'd granted them access due to medical necessity. "What about my life insurance?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Tom pulled up another screen, clicked through several pages, then stopped. His face went pale. The beneficiary was changed 4 months ago, from the American Heart Association to Sarah Hill. It shows your digital signature, dated April 15th. I didn't change it. I've never even logged into the online portal. Then someone forged it. And they knew enough about your accounts to make it look legitimate. Then, that was a very 40. Then someone forged it, and they knew enough about your accounts. Miller made calls from his cell phone while I sat in Tom's office, watching my life get dissected by strangers. When he hung up, he pulled his chair closer. I ran a background check on Sarah's boyfriend, Brett Cunningham. He's got a gambling problem, a bad one. I owes $85,000 to a bookie connected to some very dangerous people, the kind who don't negotiate payment plans. The pieces fell together like a machine I used to know how to fix. Sarah wasn't just greedy. She was desperate. And desperate people with access to $400,000 in life insurance don't just want you declared incompetent. They want you gone. Miller wanted to move fast, but I convinced him to wait. We needed more than forged signatures and draft paperwork. We needed Sarah's voice, her intent, her plan laid out in words she couldn't take back. So I went home and put those earbuds in one more time, settling into my recliner like a man who'd given up fighting. The device worked both ways, that's what David had explained. It transmitted out, sure, but it also picked up feedback from whatever receiver Sarah was using. If she made a call while monitoring me, if the signals crossed just right, I'd hear pieces of it, fragments, enough. I closed my eyes and waited. An hour passed. Then another. I was starting to think she wasn't listening today. That maybe she'd gotten what she needed and moved on to the next phase. Then I heard it, a click, a burst of static, and Sarah's voice coming through like a ghost in my ear. Totally out of it today. "I'm telling you, Brett. He's ready." Tom, a man's voice, tinny and distant. "Brett, you sure? We can't afford to mess this up. If he gets suspicious, he's not suspicious. He's confused. He asked me 3 times when Mom's birthday was. 3 times. The earbuds are working perfectly. Yesterday he spent 10 minutes looking for his wallet while it was in his hand. I kept my breathing steady, even though my heart was hammering. I kept my eyes closed. I kept playing dead. "When do we move?" Brett asked. "Thursday." I told him we're going to the bank to organize his accounts. He thinks I'm helping him. I've got the power of attorney, drawn up the real one, not the draft. Once he signs it, we have full control. The house goes on the market by Monday. The insurance beneficiary is already changed. We just need him to sign away his rights, and it's done. And if he doesn't sign? There was a pause, a long one. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. "He'll sign. He wants his daughter back. He's desperate for it. That's what makes this so easy, Brett. He'd sign anything if it meant I'd stay." The line went dead. Static filled my ears. I sat there in that chair, in the house I'd built with my own hands, listening to the silence that followed my daughter's betrayal. Then I picked up my phone and typed out a message, my fingers surprisingly steady. Sarah, I'm feeling overwhelmed with all these bills and paperwork. Can we go to the bank Thursday like you mentioned? I think I'm ready to sign that help paper. I trust you. Her response came back in seconds. Of course, Dad. I'll pick you up at 10. Love you so much. I forwarded the entire text chain to Miller, then added one line. Thursday, 10 a.m. First National. Bring handcuffs. Thursday morning came with cloudless skies and perfect weather, the kind of day that mocks you when your world is falling apart. Sarah picked me up at 10 sharp, Brett waiting in the passenger seat with a smile that didn't match his eyes. I played my part one last time, shuffling to the car, fumbling with the seatbelt, asking if we were going to the grocery store. The bank, Dad, Sarah said patiently. Remember, we're getting your accounts organized. Oh, right, the bank. Miller had arranged everything with Tom Breslin. A private conference room. Security footage from 3 angles. 2 officers positioned in the adjacent office with a clear view through the interior window. All we needed was for Sarah to put that document on the table and ask me to sign. The conference room smelled like cleaning solution and old carpet. Sarah guided me to a chair like I might collapse without her assistance, her hand on my elbow in a gesture that would have looked caring to anyone who didn't know the truth. Brett sat across from me, his knee bouncing under the table, eyes darting to the door every few seconds. Okay, Dad. Sarah pulled out a folder, the official one, not the draft I'd found. This is the power of attorney we discussed. It just gives me the ability to help you with bills, medical decisions, things like that. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. She slid the document across the table, pointed to the signature line with a pen that probably cost more than my first car. Just sign here, and we'll take care of everything. I looked at that line, had my name printed above it in cold legal typeface, at the daughter I'd raised, who was about to erase me with the stroke of a pen. Then I looked up at her and smiled. Before I do, I said, my voice suddenly clear, suddenly strong, I want to give you something. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the earbuds. Set them on the table between us. Sarah's face went white. I heard you, Sarah. Every word. Thursday. The house on the market by Monday. The insurance already changed. How easy it was. Because I was desperate to have my daughter back. Dad, I don't. The back office door opened. Detective Miller stepped out. 2 uniformed officers behind him. Brett tried to stand, but an officer's hand on his shoulder kept him in his chair. Sarah Hill, Brett Cunningham, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and attempted grand theft. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the tears I'd cried when I heard her voice through those earbuds. These were tears of someone caught, not someone sorry. Dad, please. You don't understand. We needed. I understand perfectly. They put the handcuffs on while she begged, while Brett cursed, while I stood there and watched my daughter become a stranger in a way that 4 years of silence never could.